Welcome back to Legends Live, as presented by the National Basketball Retired Players Association, the home of all our NBA and WNBA legends. I'd like to remind our viewers you can submit questions during the show that we will get to before we wrap up. Without any further ado, I'd like to get to today's guest. We've got former Duke Blue Devil, former Minnesota Timberwolf, former Grizzly, when they were in Vancouver, mind you. We have got Cherokee Parks with us. Cherokee, thank you for joining us, man.
Thank you. Good to be here, man. I appreciate the intro.
Oh, of course. First things first, we're talking a little bit backstage about just navigating through all this. So I'd like to ask, how are you? Like, how are things going?
Actually, I'm doing good. I got to tell you, I've been real fortunate. As you know, being in the space we're in right now, where we get to, communicate with people on some top line, topics, and for myself being working in player development with the NBA, since just what's transpired over the last year or so, I've just had this great group of people to be able to talk to and communicate, and resources, and just time to really ingest a lot of what's going on. So I've just been real fortunate just to be in this line of work right now, considering how much gravity is going on individually, to have it be part of your job, to be out there and be able to communicate with different players and stakeholders has been very, very helpful. So all things considering, I feel very fortunate.
You mentioned doing some player development with the league. I feel like first I have to ask you, we had a blockbuster trade yesterday. James Harden going Rockets to the Nets. So just like what's your make on that one, from the experience, of a player inside the locker room, and then also as, Cherokee Park's retired player just working within the league. What are your thoughts on it?
Well, just as it relates to the trade, I'm sure I was blown away like everybody else. I mean, we knew that was coming,
right.
But just the way it unfolded, and just the amount of the amount of pieces that were involved with the move, whether it be draft picks and player movement and teams, like
4 teams. Yeah.
Oh my gosh! And then all of that, just bringing it together. Now you got these 3 superstars that got to jibe and create something special together too. On top of that. As well as for like the Nets having top to bottom, coaching staff, a lot of new pieces. I'm still digesting it. I'm really excited to see what the Nets do with it. It looks like Houston was able to accomplish a lot. You know what I mean? And then also you get there Indiana and Cleveland as well. So a lot of good players moving around though. So a lot of good opportunity for guys. But yeah, I still would like to see this team on the court, get Kyrie back in there, and see what they do together.
Yeah,
the 3 of them, what that flow looks like. I'm really curious.
Yeah,
really curious.
It's been some talk. Like, do you think the Nets gave up too much? I'm usually of the mind that if you get the superstar, you can't really give up too much. But what's your take on that?
I don't know. I think that GM role. Well, first of all, Sean Marks is tremendous. So I'm sure he knows exactly what he's doing. I guess the thing really stood out was in the just gathering all their first round picks back. There was just all that build from the Paul Pierce and the KG trade back in the day, and it seemed like they just got those picks back. I think with this past summer, and the back end situation they get. So. But I have a lot of faith in Sean Marks' ability, so I'm sure something special is going to come out of it. So, from the player standpoint, man, it's a big adjustment, man, because you got all that surrounds that when you're on these teams. So, like, the players that are still on the Nets right now, that's the constant. That's what every reporter wants to ask about is, what's the vibe like in there? And then you got to make this adjustment. And now you also got to figure out what your role is, in these type of situations as well. So. There's a lot to be said, and then also for new guys, it just I like the opportunity for you guys to get into new markets and really see what the rest of the league has to offer, because a lot of times not every city's on your radar.
Right.
So you see these guys get moved around a little bit, and all of a sudden you get this situation like where you're going to end up down in Indiana or Cleveland. Teams are making some changes. There's some new opportunities. So at first, it might be kind of rough, but then you get on, you get in town, you get a market, and you're like, okay, this is actually a really good situation for me right now. So we'll see how this just shakes down a little bit. But I'm really excited to see those 3 guys together and see what they produce, what kind of numbers they put up as a trio.
Now you mentioned doing some player development work. Can you talk us through that? Like, how did that come about?
Audio.
Like, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Better? Worse? Still no dice? I'm guessing it's no dice.
Audio.
Can you? I don't know if you can still see me or hear me. We might have to get Bridget to type some of the questions up. Let me see. Can you hear me now, Cherokee? See, we're working through excuses. Give us just a second here. See if we can get our audio back. Give us 2 seconds here.
There we go. You got me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you now.
There we go. There we go.
That route. Yeah.
Yeah, it happens. I was saying you mentioned your player development role earlier. Like, how'd that come about, and like, what's that look like? What's your player development?
Yeah, first, yeah, that's tech now, going with all the Zoom and the interviews and stuff like that.
I was gonna say right? It happened. Everybody understands it happens.
Yeah. So the player development role. So yeah, I came into that. I've been working in the league now just a little over 3 years, but actually was introduced. Was able to work my way into that role through some player programs. Offered by the league office. So through the last CBA. One of the areas that they wanted to highlight was opportunities for former players to get better exposure to various aspects of the basketball operations and league operations in basketball. And so I was able to come into the office. I did a summer program, an executive trainee program, and then I was able to parlay that into until a basketball operations associate program, which was in its second year, which was based out of the office in New York City, and just basically got you exposure to everything happening behind the scenes at the league office, as well as some exposure with some with basketball operations at the team level. Right. And then I went through that. It was a year-long program, and then the opportunity, we started a program where we work and do some elite youth engagement. That we started a program where we were working with USA Basketball and providing some life skills and leadership development skills to the younger players. And so that that opportunity opened up for me, and I've been in that role for a couple of years now.
How are you like it? Like, are you liking that side? Are you looking to, go into more of the operation side, like with the team, and maybe not so much developing players, maybe acquiring the players or scouting, trading? Like, yeah,
no, this is great. This is great. It just differentiates too. Like, we have on-court development, and then we also have the league office for player development. So we really help with the guys transitioning and adjusting to the lifestyle of basketball and what the journey has to offer. So, for instance, with our younger guys, we're just starting to work with with some elite youth. It's just really just opening up, kind of what's going on with the game, education surrounding the game, as well as providing resources to their family. So again, establishing connections and just kind of bring it all together, because it's like, when I was coming out, when I was a young guy, I came on the radar like 8th, 9th grade. I had an 8-year runway to think about a job, basically, like everybody else. And these kids now, if you come on that radar when you're like 15, 16 years old, you have to start making some decisions.
You got 3 or 4 years max. Yeah.
And then you got with college now, they got the name, image, likeness. Like, there's some things to consider. So we're able to just bring what it is through what we've had experience with our league guys back into this realm now, and be able to just provide some resources and connections for some of these people that are up and coming, that are coming straight from the trenches. So starting up going with that, and then so when these guys get out of the league, and then guys transition into the league, so we'll meet up with guys at the combines. We'll do summer league programming in Vegas. We do the rookie transition program, getting ready for the league, and then we'll work with the union at all these events, and we'll bring to them. We just do some team awareness meetings during the season, where we're really just reaching out to the guys. And again, everything that's surrounding what they're doing on the court, there's this whole other life going on that's very, very important to a player's adjustment and their family's adjustment to this new lifestyle of playing sports for a living. And also, how do you find ways to progress and take what you're maximizing on the court and be able to maximize that off the court? So again, to our earlier point with making these trades, this big trade goes down. All of a sudden, if you got kids, you're in a new city, you're just finding your groove. There's all kinds of other things going on. So we have a network that we work with each team, that we can better assist players in adjusting to these new markets and just getting more well equipped. So one, they're better when they step on the court, they're ready to get going, but then also how to get their footprint going and maintain themselves within their communities as well.
What's one of the biggest things you try to instill within the guys, like off the court? Like, again, on the court, they'll get in their coaches, teammates, someone figure it out. But what's one thing you try to get to stick with them off the court about coming into the league?
I did just from experiences taken from what I did or didn't do. I think just being honest with your investment into the game. Because you can decide again, now that we're talking with y'all, like we have this broad stroke where we're reaching kids as young as 15 years old, all the way up until the legends and the retired players. It goes on. We have this network going on that you can decide really early on in your journey if sports is where you want to be. You know what I mean? It's you may not be the opportunity to play professionally as an athlete, but you can work professionally. Definitely. And so we can decide earlier on in the game how much time we want to invest into being attentive to what the game's about and what's the business of the game and how things are working. And, you know, there's just this kind of belief too, like when we're done playing, we can go into coaching or we can do commentating and we can do all these other things, or we can be a GM. And it's not the case. It's just because you play doesn't mean you're good at these other things. Right. They take time and you got to practice. And so, but you can earlier on in your year, in your playing career, you can decide. You can pay attention to what a coach does. You can sit in on a coach's meeting, put together some practice plans, learn about scouts that are watching you. There's people you can sit down with and be like, hey, man, I like a lot of these different aspects of the game. That ultimately you're learning trade. You know, you're learning skills. You're learning things within your business you can do later. But ultimately you're making yourself a better player. You know, I mean, you're learning how you're being evaluated. You're learning how the coach is utilizing you when he's putting together a practice plan. You're learning all these components of the game. That again, it's a win-win. So, you know, with some of these other guys, it's just getting involved with the game and being honest with yourself about one, what you understand, what's going on, and how much you're putting into the game as well. You know, I mean, I was down in the bubble for 3 months, and I went to a lot of Laker games, man. I don't remember LeBron taking his eyes off the court for the entire game.
He's just laser focused.
Laser focused from the time he steps on that court until that game is done. When he's off and he's sitting on the sideline, he is still in the game the entire time. And so it's just, I mean, that's what it takes to be a legend. That's what it takes to be a legendary player, is that type of commitment. So just being honest with yourself as far as what you're giving to the game and what you're trying to get out of the game. And, you know, there's enough to go around too, man. And the circles are small enough too that you really commit yourself in different areas, man. You could take this game, you can, you know, take it a long way. So just mainly that, just being honest about what you're putting into it.
Now, what was your role? I guess, what did the bubble look like for you? You said 3 months. That's not a short stint down there. So how was that experience for you?
It was great. It was, you know, everybody had to wear different hats, but we didn't know what to expect.
Right.
You know, we were going in, or that was the beta stage of development, was like live, you know, we're going with this. But I think the setup, everything that came down, I'll tell you what, our preparation leading up to the bubble was what was helpful with how the season, the abruptness of which it ended. We had to stay ready week to week, you know, as everybody did.
Never knew.
We didn't know. So that week to week preparation, I think what actually made when that scenario happened, was like, that's going to happen. Everybody was already in that gear, and so we were able to just slip in that lane and get up in there. But it was amazing. I mean, it was just, you imagine, just basketball centric the whole time, courts everywhere. You're walking through hotels and you're seeing all these guys just walking around the hotels, just like, you know, eating with their families and stuff. And then on top of that, just the actual bubble itself, where people are getting tested every day. There's hand sanitizing stations everywhere. And then just staying with that common goal, just finishing out getting to that last game, getting to the chip, and you're making sure that gets done. And I think everybody really was able to adjust and find that lane. So my takeaway from it was fantastic. I think everybody really, put their best foot forward, and really brought out. I think that the players sacrificed a lot. I thought the NBA employees, the officials, the media that was down there, like everybody really put a lot to make that happen. And everybody just became this quite, kind of tight knit kind of community down there, just trying to, ride it out. And then it became the inverse. Initially it was like, what's going to happen in the bubble? But when you're in there, you're kind of watching all this other stuff going on outside.
Yeah.
And you're in this contained little tight sealed community. And it was interesting. But again, within that, you have mental health specialists. You have the teams are getting good meals and nutritionists, and they're finding ways to stay active and busy and do as much as we can in this situation. So it was really helpful, I think, considering what degree this has taken, this whole climate's taken on over the last year. To be in that situation for a little bit was like, you kind of just take a deep breath, and just kind of do your job. And there was kind of a little feeling of normalcy in there, to be honest with you.
Yeah. So do you think you would have liked, like in your playing days, you think you would have liked that? Because I've heard some former players say, they think they would have liked it a little bit more, just like the structure, the being around the team kind of reminded them more so of college. Some guys, say it would have taken them completely out of their routine. So you think you would have, which side do you think you as a player would have liked it?
Yeah, I don't like no distraction. You got food set up for you everywhere, and it's just the games. And then also, man, I used to get drilled by fans too, man. They used to let me have it. There's not a lot of Duke lovers out there. You
What?
know?
People
Yeah,
don't
not a lot of Duke lovers out there. So
know.
I used to get an earful. So I think I was just watching these games now, what it would be like to just be playing,
Right.
and your only focus is really your game. And again, getting the seats in the bubble was just there's no crowd surfing. There's no one yelling anything. There's no old friend that you ran into that's in that city. There's none of that stuff. It's just get out there and you put the ball in the hole and let's get this game done. So I think I would have kind of, I think I might have kind of liked it a little bit, to be honest with you. Like
Okay,
I said, I got an earful. So
you mentioned earlier, you said, you had coming out of, or going into high school, I should say, you had 6, 7, 8 years. You stayed all 4 years in college. Was that ever something that you considered? Like, did you ever consider going pro, like leaving early, or you knew all along?
No, just even for myself, it wasn't even it just really wasn't a thought. And this is coming in with like the guys that were touted at the time, like with C Webb and Juwan Howard, Jalen, the Fab Five. We came in through that same year. And me and Chris he was playing out of his mind all the way through high school, and he still had to put in a solid 2 years, and it was still like, oh, okay, C Webb's coming out. And then maybe some guys will roll out their juniors, but it just really wasn't common at the time to come out early. Like, you had to be up there. But for myself, it was always just that 4 years. Like, it was just kind of, that was always a plan. I didn't really ever think about leaving early. And then, sure enough, we rolled into my senior year. We have the rookie salary cap coming in, and we had all these underclassmen jump out early that year, and all this stuff going on. You couldn't have anticipated that. If I could have, it would have been better for me to jump my junior year when we just came off a national championship game. But you can't. Yeah, it was just my mindset was get in there in 4 years is how was going to be the plan, and just to get it done. So I just think that takes a lot of courage at that time for someone to really commit early to leaving. Because there was always those stories, those guys jumping ship a little bit early and they weren't quite ready yet. And then they just got kind of buried, where otherwise they were sensational college players at the time. So I think it takes a lot of grit for these guys at that time to be like, okay, I'm gonna hit the draft a little bit early. Yeah. So I was looking at the full runway.
Now, what do you remember about your draft prospect? Or I guess just the draft experience. You remember you said you're doing some work with the younger players, like the draft combine, the rookie symposium. What do you remember about your combine, or just the entire draft process?
Well, it was tough. Again, it was one of those years. So you get to the combines, and combines are tremendous because you get to see everybody together. At our time, everybody at the combines were people that were going to get or were applying for the draft. Now they have a few other things going on where players can come test the waters a little bit. But at that time was really when you got to really kind of size people up, kind of take a look at them. People are already kind of rolling in. They got some bags. They already got a little bit of jewelry going on, and they're starting to express themselves.
Oh yeah.
So it was just a lot of fun in that regard. And then also just the amount of media that comes through, and just, it's like really sinking in, like, okay, this is going to happen.
Right.
All right, this is going to happen. Like, the draft is coming up. Okay, all this is really starting to go for that build. And then for my particular experience, was that we had the draft up in Toronto, and then there was a lockout the following day. So the 95. So we had the draft. I think the plan was, if it was similar to my experience, is that the next day I flew down to Dallas, I signed my contract, and then the lockout started the following day. So and then we locked out the whole summer. Yeah. And then we started up a week before the season started. It was scheduled to start. So we had no summer league. There was no summer activities. I think we still did RTP towards the end of the summer, the rookie transition program, but it was just pretty much like it was just up in the air. So I didn't get that taste. Like, these rookies now get it in.
Right.
Like, the combines and then drafts, incredible, and then going to Vegas, it's just off the hook. Yeah, and then then we got RTP at the end of the summer, and then now they're ready to give their teams and get the season going. So there's just a great build for the summer for these guys to prepare. And we didn't have that. That was completely gone. So I was drafted by Dallas, and then I didn't work out with them, actually. So when I got down there, it was pretty much the first time I was meeting the staff and all the coaches. Was after I got drafted. Yeah.
So was it you didn't meet? So was it like a surprise, or you kind of knew the range? Did your agent give you like a heads up or anything? Because now I feel like we see.
It was tough. I worked out with 3 through 11. So, and I got drafted 12. So
Okay.
we pretty much were sitting there, and it was like, and then, it was kind of set. And then Damon Stoudemire jumped from like the late teens, early 20s up to like, I think 6 or 7, I think it was. And it just kind of shifted everything.
Yeah.
And then so the numbers kind of shifted. So we got to, I think 11 was Milwaukee, and I hadn't worked out with anybody after that. I worked out with Chicago at 17, which would have been great because that was the 72-10 team.
Oh yeah.
95-96.
Yeah, that would have been all right.
Special. But yeah, so I just, after the 11 pick, I was just kind of like, okay, we'll see what's up. And then you're just kind of, your mind's reeling, and you're anxious, and you're disappointed, but you're excited, and
Right.
it's a lot. It's a lot. Yeah. So I had only worked out for the block, and then once that 11th pick went by, I was, all right, here we go, and then just ended up being the next pick to Dallas.
Now, I mentioned you are a Grizzly, but when they were Vancouver, like the old school Grizzlies, what do you remember about that experience?
It was phenomenal because they came in '95, and so I did my first 3 years. I did the year in Dallas and 2 years in Minnesota. So when I went up there, Big Country was still up there. They made that big trade. They initially drafted Stevie Francis, and they ended up trading him down, getting to Houston, and then landed Mike Bibby, Mike Dickerson, Othello Harrington came up through that. But team, we were trying to find our way. The city itself was fantastic. Vancouver was great. I had a lot of great experiences up there. We opened up the new building that Toronto plays in now. We played the first game in that building, like way back when. And it was a quick blip. I mean, there's just not a lot about Vancouver that you hear now, except the throwback jerseys made a comeback. Those teal throwbacks.
Those are beautiful.
Our favorite uniforms are hot again.
Oh yeah.
So. But it was quick, and it was fun, but it's just amazing that they were only there for that 6 years.
Yeah.
And they were just out. But the city, I mean, I think they should definitely be on the radar, if we're looking at expanding to, open up a couple of cities for another, expansion, NBA expansion. If there's Seattle, I think Vancouver is one of those teams that would have to be recognized as well. Just it was a great experience, a lot of fun. It's amazing how quickly they were just in and out like that.
That's what I was going to ask you. We've heard a lot of talk about expansion. It feels like Seattle is going to get, feels like rightfully so, they're going to get a team. But the other team, I've heard some Las Vegas. I'd heard Vancouver because I've seen this like, okay, they're much more prepared now for an NBA team than they were at that point. So would that be your two spots, Seattle and Vancouver?
That's like, how would you do that? Like, it's like, would you... what would be like? Yeah, obviously, Seattle's fantastic. Vegas is hot, like it's coming up on everybody's radar. There's been talk of Mexico City possibly being a destination for either the G League or an NBA team. But yeah, I mean, that would make sense, right? Like bring Memphis and New Orleans over, and then open up spots in the West. Yeah, but I just based on from playing. It's Seattle. I mean, I don't ever remember being in Seattle, even if my team wasn't great, and not the environment there, and just not being just electric and sold out. Yeah. And those teams, I mean, look at all those players went through, like Seattle Supersonics, like top to bottom, like they seem to have the full legends. Yeah. So, but again, it's, bring those teams out. You got to make sure you have the talent now to spread out to all those teams. And then, with the trade that we just talked about, we got 3 of the best players in the league now up on one team, and kind of how these players move around a little bit, kind of would put certain teams market wise in jeopardy just because, the players moving the way they do. So, but I mean, I think environment wise, climate wise, culture wise, like, yeah, Seattle has just proven to be a hit.
So before we jump to a couple of viewer questions, what do you make of like the player empowerment? I feel like it's been a big topic lately, like because players are, exercising that right to, leave teams of free agency, request a trade. Like you said, we just saw 3 of the 3 all-star caliber players link up. What do you make of that? Because I know player empowerment, free agency was a lot different when you play.
Yeah, and I think that it just kind of spreads out. Like it goes different ways. Like obviously, if you're a fan and it's your market and it's your city, and you see players that have that flexibility and be able to move around, that could be frustrating.
Yeah.
From a player standpoint, have my player hat on, absolutely. I mean, if that's what the market allows, and you could go in and now you can actively say, because you don't get to choose who you're drafted by. We pick our colleges and our high schools and so forth, and our agents and the people that are in our inner circles. But when you're drafted, it's not your choice.
Yep.
And so, put my player hat on to be able to have that kind of freedom, be like, oh, let's hook up. Okay, our paths can actually cross here over this team. Okay,
right.
cool. I mean, that's great. But then, and then from the owner standpoint, though, it's like, or, from a coaching standpoint, it's
right.
gotta be really tough.
Yeah.
To be able to like look long term with stuff. And so, it's tough. I think it's tough on some markets. I think where you're at. But again, I think the players, if that's what's, that's what the case is now, and you got a little bit of freedom in deciding where it is you might want to land. I think that's what these guys are doing.
So won't keep you too long. We'll see if we got a couple of viewer questions here. See, not a question, but M2 Sherman says you got a better haircut now than in 1992.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, I got a lot of flack for having a floppy kind of moppy haircut back in the day. I actually have a good friend of mine in Los Angeles, a really good friend, that I met later in life. But early on when I was in college, Southern California guys, and they were like, dude, we used to watch games just to hate on you, just to hate on your haircut. It was all moppy and flopping around, but I've actually heard that quite a bit. So
yeah.
I appreciate that it's a step up, man.
Let's see. Next question we got from Travis. Alan Travis says, what are your thoughts on the game of basketball today? Legends like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Tim Duncan observe that the post-game balance is lacking today as opposed to when you and Tim play. So what are your thoughts on the evolution of the big man?
Yeah, I'll agree. Actually, we were just talking today, with a coworker about like a Jared Allen, because he was involved in that trade. Like, I love that type of center right now. That guy that's going to come out, stone face. He's going to get you rebounds. He's going to block shots. He's going to run plays. He does not need the ball at all. And it seems like, and he's a big guy, and he's tough, but he's thin, but he's tough. And it seems like that's the type of guy like that fits at a center role now versus like you talk about with the Duncan and Kareem. These guys were like, you used to build your team from that center out, and then you kind of work the way around that. How the games change and stuff. Like, man, it's like just seeing that even now the dominant guys that come in could pass the ball and they could shoot threes, and if they don't, they're working on that. So. But it's like you think, man, who is that guy that can just dominate on the block? Like back in my day, it was like an Antonio McDyess. It was like 6'8", 6'9", and he would catch on the post and he would just shoot turnaround jumpers the whole game. You know what I mean? So you had to double team the guy all the time. He causes focus, and it just seems like those type of players. That's not the style of game, and two is that it's also because the game's changed is that you see a lot of defensive assignments, guys just switch. It used to be kind of like you get locked up on your guy and you wanted to stay position wise, position smart with your guy, and now they can just switch everything. So like defense isn't even really the same, and so I think to gauge like how guys would like take some guys now and put them in, from then and put situations now, how they would actually perform. Like I don't know, but like if you throw Kareem out there, like I still think he's unstoppable.
Oh yeah.
I think that dude was still 44,000 points or whatever he did. I still think he would do now. I don't think this game would have changed at all because he had that one unstoppable shot.
Yeah. Got one from Cameron. Cameron Ballard says, what current player has the best tattoos? You feel like the expert there. So what current player has the best ink?
Dude, who has the best ink? Man, I don't know, man. It's hard to tell. Guys got a lot of ink now. Like we're coming up back a little bit. You have a little something here, a little something there. Guys now are just like,
they're
all the way down.
Head to toe almost. Yeah.
Yeah, I like how JR flosses his. I gotta be honest. Like all his stuff looks really good and it's bold, and you know what I mean. And just how he expresses it, I think is pretty cool. I probably like what he's doing the most. It's amazing how much it's just become like a normal part of a player's appearance.
Definitely.
When they get done, and then there's so much of it when they come back with new stuff the following year. It's kind of like you don't really.
It's hard to even tell.
You don't even know what it is. Can't even tell you. So I think a lot of guys just putting together some fun stuff.
So one last question before we let you out of here. We're doing a Legends playlist. We just dropped our first one. We're getting together our second one. What's something that you're listening to, either in the car, working out, playing golf, whatever. What's in your headphones these days?
I would, man. I pretty much got it, man. I kind of fell off a little bit. I pretty much just go up on there and I find one of my channels.
Okay.
On yeah, if I get up on there, I find Spotify, I find a channel like the radio, and then whatever the certain artist is, and I just kind of
go
get
from
some
there.
new stuff on that. I've been in New York, so I haven't had a car. So I've been in New York the last couple of years. So like that was usually where you get your new fix of your tunes on and stuff like that. So yeah, pretty much nothing really top of mind right now, man. I grew up on punk rock, that's kind of been like
it can be something old. It can be doesn't have to be anything new.
Yeah, some of my old school favorites, man. So Southern California punk rock, it's kind of what I grew up on. So whether that's just some Pennywise or some Bad Religion or Descendants or No Effects, I mean, just kind of 3 chords, keeping it fast and loud and short. Get a whole record in about 12 minutes.
Perfection.
That's about it. And then the rest of the stuff, I just let it flow, man. I've been liking just something a little bit slow right now is good. Something I could just kind of groove out to.
Chill out, yeah.
It's also kind of nice too. Yeah, I like that.
Definitely. Okay, we'll get those added. Cherokee Parks, thank you so much for joining us, man.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Oh, of course. That'll do it for this week's Legends Live. Of course, we've got new episodes live every Thursday, 5 p.m. Eastern on the NBA Alumni Twitter, the Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch page. I'd like to remind our viewers you can watch replays of any episode at legendsofbasketball.com/legendslive. And you can catch the audio replay to our conversation by searching Legends Studio wherever you get your podcast. It'll pull up there. I'd like to say thank you to Bridget and Julio behind the scenes, and we'll see you next Thursday.